Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show. Please don't touch that remote. We got a good show here. Now, if you look around here, you'll see what we're going to talk about today. I think my guest is going to be talking about wine. And you're going to tell a nice story. And we're going to see a nice film about wine. Really, there's a song. There's a song that goes like this. From the vine comes the grapes, from the grapes comes the wine, from the wine comes a beautiful love song. Okay, and then we've out. So my guest today is Tom Catanese. Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show.
Thank you, Hank.
Okay, now, this is your baby.
All right.
You got to talk about it.
Take it away,
Tell me
Tom.
something about you first. Hurry up.
Well, first of all, I'm a native of Norristown.
Went to school in Norristown?
I'm a Hall of Fame member. I went to school. I graduated in 1958. I was a third-generation florist. My grandmother opened a flower shop on DeKalb Street in Norristown in 1915. So I was a third-generation florist, and basically I worked in the shop from 1958 until 1974 when I said I just couldn't do it. We were working at those times 7 days a week. I discovered a new product called shrink film. Shrink film is the products you see when you go to the supermarket and there's two bottles together and it's held together. That's shrink. I introduced shrink film to the gift basket industry in 1967. It was brand spanking new. Everybody in the gift basket industry was using cellophane. But cellophane has a tearing effect. If it gets punctured once, the film will run under force, all right? Yeah. So that was one of the reasons why it was so acceptable. So I started designing gifts, and then over a period of years, I've done about 1,000 different original gifts between 1967 and 2015.
All right, what's these bottles here? What's the
okay, let me talk about why I'm here. I'm here today because I created a movie called Mondavi, the Man, the Wine, the World. Robert Mondavi lived in Napa. He was originally born in Italy. His parents were born in Italy. He came over. He was born in the United States. Then his father and mother
money over here
and moved to Napa. And this is where he went to Stanford University, got a degree in marketing and sales, and talked his father into buying the oldest winery in Napa, which was called the Charles Krogh Winery. Beautiful stones building, actually, unbelievable. And from 1943 until 1965, he and his brother made wine at that winery.
Wow.
But what happened, what makes the story unusual is that his brother accused him of stealing money from the checking account, which was not true.
Not true.
And they got into a major fight, and then his mother, realizing that her baby, Peter, had been beaten up, said, what happened? And then she says to him, Robert and I had a fight. She then fires Robert. He has no savings. He's got 3 kids in college, and that's really where the story starts.
And we got a film on that, right?
And he's from 1965 until 2004, he sells $8 billion in wine across the world, not just in California.
That's what you call about getting off the floor.
He certainly got up off the floor.
How many times you get knocked down, how many times you get up?
Well, what he did was, after he was fired, he took a card table and chair, he went into the vineyard, sat in there and questioned God, why are you letting this happen to me now? And the answer came back to him, now you can start your own winery and you won't be restrained by your mother or your brother or any other people. And that's how the story started. So I think that we should start, just about there with the movie.
How about this bottle here? Tell me something about this bottle.
This is a Methuselah, all right? This is a Rehoboam, and there's a smaller bottle called a Jeroboam. These were named after Jewish kings and famous
The Jews had kings?
They did, yes. King Samuel. I mean, not King Samuel, but I can't think of his Saul. King Saul was the first Jewish king. So there's 3 bottles that are even bigger than this, and the French made the bottles because they wanted to only serve the champagne at their wedding, at their daughter's wedding, out of one bottle. So I think maybe we should start the movie.
Well, I know one thing before we go into your movie. John Doyle and I went up to Pat Mascara's
okay.
vineyard on the other side of Reading, and we filmed it.
I've heard about it. I heard about it.
We're going to go up there and finish that up, but it's a great, great film. So we're, this is great. Now, this story, we're going to watch it, and it's all about.
Well, it's the story of his life that I created and produced. I have a company called.
You produced and directed.
I did it from
That's
scratch.
your voice?
It's my voice. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's my English voice.
Huh?
I used it as an English voice.
All right, okay. How about my song?
I can't remember that.
From the vine comes the grapes, from the grape comes the wine, from the wine comes a beautiful love song.
I'll drink to that.
All right, on with the film, okay?
Right,
Good.
right. And God said to Noah, Plant and maketh thy vineyard, and crush thy berries into a vessel. Use the nectar, the blood of the grape, to help celebrate my high holy days and my special festivals. Hello, my name is Sir Anthony Greener, and I was a past board member of the Robert Mondavi Winery. My wife and I were visiting Margaret at her hilltop villa, and she said to me, Tony, would you be so kind as to do me a huge favor? I said, Margaret, what is your pleasure, darling? And she said, you see, we're doing a video on Bob's life, and we need an international voice. And now that you're here, I just felt your voice would be perfect. So would tomorrow be all right? And I said, of course it would be. It would be my great pleasure. So let me tell you about this inspirational, unbelievable, rags to riches life story of my friend Robert Mondavi. He was one hell of a man. He was a great man. He showed the world how to love wine, how to love life, how to use wine in the celebration of your life. The movie is called Mondavi, The Man, the Wine, and the World. Our story begins in 1978 on board Air France Flight 723, direct from JFK to Bordeaux International Jetport. Robert and his daughter Marcy have been invited to the chateau of the world's most famous French winemaker, the Baron Philippe de Rothschild, the owner of the Chateau Mouton Rothschild, the Premier Growth Winery. Robert is looking out the window. He's looking down on the vineyards of Bordeaux. His daughter Marcy says, Daddy, what are you thinking of? Robert, looking down on the vineyard, says he's recalling the day in 1965 when his mother Rosa was in her kitchen. She said, Bobby, you're fired. He couldn't believe his ears. He'd worked for 23 years as the general manager at the Charles Krug Winery in Napa. What did she mean I was fired? He and his family were now banned from working at the Charles Krug Winery. How could this be? He said it took him 23 years of hard work building that winery every day. Yes, he said, it was a challenge, and yes, some days we had no money in the bank. But with the providence of God, he provided us with the best grapes grown in the Napa Valley. Of course, once we became profitable, it was fun, but it was very hard work. And now in 1978, the most famous wineman in all the world wanted to partner with Robert to make French wine on American soil in the Napa Valley. Robert said he felt like he had climbed Mount Everest and planted the House of Mondavi family flag at the summit. He was smiling. Back in 1965, Robert was broke.
He had no savings. He didn't even own his own home. He had 3 children in college. In fact, Robert was the one who talked his father, Cesar Mondavi, into buying the Krog Winery when it came up for sale in 1943. The family Mondavi was a close-knit family, Italian immigrants from Italy. They moved to California in 1915. In 1943, friends of Robert said, "The Krog Winery is up for sale. It is the oldest winery in California." Robert quickly went up to see it. He saw that this was perfect. "We must buy it," he said at once. He then drove back to the family home in Lodi to inform his father. He told his father how they could sell wine in bottles instead of in tank cars and make 300% profit. That day in 1943, in his mother's kitchen, his father listened to him patiently. But Robert could not sway his father with the deal. That night, when his parents went to bed, his mother Rosa said to her husband, "Did you send your sons away to college to sell grapes? They want to make wine. You go up to the Napa tomorrow with Robert, and if that winery looks good to you, you buy it for your sons and daughters' future." Rosa's words were very, very strong. That morning, Cesar came downstairs. He said to Bobby, "You and I are going to Napa today." Bobby was quite surprised. He looked at his mother at once. He saw her smile, and then he knew it was her magic words that night that did the trick. They left that morning. They went to the winery and purchased it the next day at the Bank of America in San Francisco. Robert said it was one of the happiest days of his life. It was Robert's goal to secure that winery. It was his ambition. His ego pulled it off. Robert was a spark plug. He was an energizer. He was a promoter. He understood that the future of American winemaking depended on improving the quality of the wine. Robert believed that winemaking and promoting the drinking of wine was part of the good life, the celebration of life. It was the key to his future, and he was already working on his dream come true. Robert and Marjorie took a trip to France, which really opened their eyes to the possibility of changing winemaking in America forever. It was his younger brother, Peter, the shy and conservative one, who resented Robert's ambition, his energy, and his vision of the future. Peter saw Robert as irresponsible, especially in his wild, free-spending ways on business trips across the country. In early 1962, Robert received an invitation to the White House dinner honoring the new Italian ambassador from President and Mrs. Kennedy. His wife Marjorie was quite concerned because she didn't have a fancy coat. So they decided to go into San Francisco and do some shopping at a stylish department store. When Robert purchased a mink coat for his wife Marjorie and then charged it on the Krog Winery expense account, expecting to pay it back, it was just too much for Peter to bear. Over the next 3 years, Peter's anger and displeasure at his brother was noticeable. The Mondavi tempers finally clashed in 1965 when Peter accused Robert of stealing company funds. That insulted Robert's integrity. They started fighting in the winery warehouse, rolling in the dirt of the floor, and Peter got the worst of the fight. His face was all bruised. When Mother Rosa saw the bruises on her baby son Peter, she then turned against her son Robert. She called a meeting of the Krog Winery, the board of directors, and voted to fire Robert on the spot. The family forced him out of the Krog Winery, and his sons were also banned from working there in the future. Robert owned 20% of the winery stock, and he needed the money so he could start his own winery. But the family refused his request. They refused him for 10 years. In 1976, he finally brought a lawsuit against the Charles Krog Winery. In looking back over the years, he said that the court case was the worst experience of his life. In the middle of the case, Rosa, his mother, has a heart attack and passes away. Both sides blame each other. In the end, Robert wins the case and the judge awards him a large sum of money that is rightfully his. The judge gave instructions that the Charles Krog Winery be sold at auction, But Robert did not want to hurt his brother and his sisters, and so he and Peter came to a joint agreement to satisfy the court's ruling, which was very workable for the Mondavi brothers. In 1966, Michael graduated from college and had come into the new Robert Mondavi winery. He always did an outstanding job at the winery, and his father was very, very pleased. Both Marcy and Tim came to work in 1974. All of his children always did well at the winery. It was now his winery, free and clear of all debt. Back in 1965, it's true, as some of them say, that Robert had an ego as high as the Golden Gate Bridge. And it's also true that he had a taste for the good life, the best of everything. Back then, Robert would not be defeated. By sheer willpower, he built his dream-come-true winery. He raised over $200,000 in startup funding from industry wine friends. People believed in him and his vision for the Napa Valley. Robert hires a famous Hollywood home designer who understands what he wants in a new winery design. Robert says it must be a showcase design. It must invite people into the winery because of its design. Cliff May fulfills his dream come true. Robert wants a winery design that will attract wine lovers and tourists alike. The design is a Spanish-style high arched with a compressed A-frame roof with a tall Spanish watchtower. Robert looks at it. He says, "That's it. You've nailed it. You've nailed it. That's what I want." In late 1965, the Robert Mondavi Winery begins construction. Robert's dream is to create wine that will be called world-class and that will rival all European wines. Robert brings new high-tech science to his winery lab. He's learned from the French to handle the grape berries tenderly when they come to the winery. Also, he uses small French oak barrels to age the wines. These French oak barrels add a special taste value to the wine. Robert is able to release his first wine in the very first year of business, 1966. In 1968, he bottles a Sauvignon Blanc, then considered an inferior grape, under the name of Fumé Blanc. It is very profitable for him. In 1976, Robert achieves a new level of fame with the infamous Paris Tastings, a blind tasting in Paris of America's Napa Valley wines up against first-growth French wines. Stephen Spurrier, an Englishman who owns wine shops in Paris, decides to host a publicity stunt to gain business for his shops in Paris because of America's 200th bicentennial anniversary. He conceives a Franco-American wine tasting at the Intercontinental Hotel, believing that the French wines will beat the young boutique Napa Valley wines. The tasting blows up in Spurrier's face. The Napa Valley wines win 5 gold medals of the best of 10 entries for Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. The young Americans have beat the French hands down. It's unbelievable. The impossible has happened in Paris, with the best French wine tasting experts in the world doing the tasting. Robert gets a call from someone at the New York Times, relates the good news to him about the winners of the Paris tasting. Robert is celebrating because both of the winemakers worked for him in the early 60s. Both winemakers had gotten their early education and training at the University of Robert Mondavi Test Tube Winery back in 1965. Robert had trained both men on how to make the best wine in the world. Because of the famous Paris tastings, Baron Philippe de Rothschild has invited Robert to Bordeaux in 1978. The Baron wants to discuss a joint venture in Napa Valley with Robert, making French wine in Napa Valley. Robert is absolutely thrilled. What an opportunity, he says. Working as a partner with his wine idol, the Baron, they create Opus One Winery right in the middle of Napa Valley. Robert's dream has come true, and now it's on steroids. Robert is flourishing in the wine world. The Robert Mondavi Winery is receiving praise and tribute from the wine industry magazines across the country and from the fancy food consumer industry media. But Robert's life at home is foundering. As Robert pursues his dream and travels 4 months out of the year, his good wife Marjorie falls deeper and deeper into a drinking problem. Michael, his oldest son, later complained bitterly that my father neglected his wife and his children in pursuit of his own world, fame and fortune. Tim said that Dad never came to any of my games. Marjorie was always there for Robert in the early years, but back in 1962, Robert meets a woman who's going to change his life. The very capable, the very beautiful and vivacious Marguerite Bivier, a very fair-haired Swiss blonde who has captured his heart, but she is also married. Margaret also speaks 5 languages and finally becomes the publicity department head. She is a wizard at cooking both American and European gourmet meals. She begins to take over the role of Robert's first wife at the winery, and soon Robert discovers that Marguerite shares the same vision, the same plan, and the same future goals and mission of the Robert Mondavi Winery. Robert's children recognize what is going on behind the closed doors and are very, very angry. They are insulting Marguerite at the winery. The winery has a no dating policy between employees, but not for Robert, he's the boss. Behind the scenes, they fall in love and begin a 10-year, not-so-well-kept secret affair. Robert wants a divorce. Marge's children rally around her. Robert does provide very well for her during the divorce. He marries Marguerite in 1980 in Palm Springs. When Robert can only speak expertly about wine, Marguerite is all about marketing. Now, as Mrs. Mondavi, she's become the marketing director of the winery, conceives the August Moon Saturday evening celebrity concerts. The concerts are a huge success. She conceives of the famous French chef cooking program at the winery, which turns out to be another great success. The French chefs taste Robert's wine and love it. They have it, they ship it home to their restaurants and place it on their menus all over France. His wines are the first American wines to be served in any French restaurant. And now these French chefs are talking all about the Mondavis of Napa Valley. In 1981, it's Margaret's idea to start the Napa Valley Wine Auction. Over 30 years, it's raised over $50 million for Napa Valley hospitals. The Napa Valley Auction turns out to be the best 4-day wine and gourmet food party in the world. In 1994, Wall Street comes calling. Goldman Sachs expressed interest in offering the Mondavi Corporation a Wall Street IPO that could mean $40 million to the winery's bottom line. Robert is fascinated by the idea because they are always cash poor at the winery. Goldman makes the presentation, Robert's ego gets the best of him, and he agrees to go up with the big boys. They do the IPO, and it is very, very successful. In the late 1980s, the Mondavi Winery received some very bad news. The vineyard has been infested by the phylloxera bug, a tiny microscopic bug that sucks the roots and the vines dry of their natural moisture. The Mondavis are forced to pull up all of the rootstocks and the vines and replant over 300 acres in Napa Valley, which is the most expensive acreage in California, at a cost of $4.5 million. Robert has done it all. He is now known as America's wine icon. He has won every industry award there is, and then some. The winery's success is at its high point. The name Mondavi is America's brand name wine. In 2000, the French ambassador calls Robert at his office. He tells Robert the good news. He says that, "It is my good fortune to announce to you, Robert, today that you have been awarded the French Legion of Honor." Margaret tells Robert that only 2 other Americans in history have been given the honor, Lindbergh and Patton. And now, my dear, you have received it. As the ambassador pinned the Legion of Honor medal on Robert, he said, "I know that you will want to say a few words to your friends." Robert walks over to the mic and looks over the crowd of friends. He says, "Thank you, merci, merci. Thank you to the ambassador. Thank you to the French government. This is such a grand honor," he says, "to be awarded this famous medal. I am truly honored and humbled. I have many people to thank. As I look at the faces here in the crowd, I see people who have helped me with my dream come true. And without you, I could not have done what I needed to do. We did it together. To my children, to my wife, to my good friends, you are the best of the best, and I know what you did for me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much."
Tom, that was great. You know, Harry Truman says, "What's new? The history we haven't read."
That's
and
right.
To read about this, about a success, a guy that gets down and finds himself up. And I want to thank you also for doing a film, a special film on the Columbus Monument.
Columbus,
you know,
yeah.
and all your talent you have here. Local guy,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
So we got 30 seconds.
All right.
So tell me.
Well, real quick, if anyone wants to see more of the movie and some of the other things like the film from Hello Columbus, I also, on the website, I have Our Lady of Shaka, Why We Carry the Statue in
Shaka's
the East
a little
End,
town
the
in
little
Sicily.
in Sicily. If they go to www.thisisyourlifetimestory.com, then they'll be able to look at all the different pictures that I have on there, click on the picture, and it will play. So the Mondavi movie's on there, Our Lady of Shaka's on there, Hello Columbus is on there.
right.
I have a Holy Rosary video that's on there, and a number of others, you know, that, you know.
And
so
you can put them on YouTube too, right?
I have them, believe it or not.
This show will go on.
If they go to thomascatanese.com, I have 20 YouTube videos on my website on the YouTube logo. So they just click on the YouTube logo and all those movies will come up.
Okay.
Thanks for having
All
me.
right, thank you. And away we go, baby. All right, okay. Thank you, everybody. And may God bless each and every one. Okay? Alla salud. Shake
Amen.
hands. Thank
Amen.
you. Okay.
Amen.
Here we go. Where's yours? Ready?
You got it, kid.
From the vine comes the grapes. From the grapes
Good
come
wine.
the wine.
Good wine.
Thank you.